Welcome to the Joe podcast. I am Joe Vendramini from the Range Cattle Research and Education Center, and today our guest is Dr. Roger West. Dr. West, thanks for being with us.
Sure thing.
Dr. West, can you please tell us about your career and what you have been doing in the last years?
I'm originally from Polk County, Florida, a little place called Homeland, and came up here to the university and then went to Texas A&M and came back here on the faculty and was on the faculty for 30 years and retired, and now I'm full-time in the cattle business.
And Dr. West, can you please also mention something, because during your faculty career you were also president of the Florida Cattlemen Association.
That was actually right after I retired, but I was president. But I've tried to be active in the Cattlemen's Association for a long time.
And your area of expertise has been meat quality.
Correct, meat science.
Meat science.
Taught classes in various aspects of meat science and did research on quality and tenderness of beef over the 30 years.
And you also had a company to do screening of carcass or do some measurements on the field?
Yeah, ultrasound. Carcass characteristics. Did that for purebred producers or whoever wanted to do it, and also did youth shows around the state and got carcass data for them that way. So.
Okay. And Dr. West, you have been in these carcass measurements and meat quality for a long time. So what were the changes that you have seen to these last 30 years in the industry?
Well, I think the greatest thing or the best thing that's happened, we used to be real happy when we got 50% choice out of a group of cattle. Nowadays, we're talking about 85 and 90% choice in prime. Prime has gone from like 1% of the population. The last figure I saw said 8%. So the industry has really worked hard to improve the quality of our beef that we're producing. And I think it's really helped us in consumption of the product as well.
So with this change in the carcass, do you think now they will probably create new standards? Because we are going up to the point that choice is not something unusual anymore, right?
Well, that's a possibility. One of the things that I read about nowadays is maybe we'll just do away with select and just group all the selects and standards together. And there's so few of them, it really won't make a difference.
Okay.
We can still improve choice by having more in the upper choice, which would be for things like certified Angus beef. Or we could work very hard to get them into prime. That's sort of the trend I see coming.
And I believe a lot of the carcass improvements that have been done has been through bulls, right? People go to a bull sale and they wanted to get a bull that will produce some animals with a better carcass. So,
yeah, that's true. I think really the thing that's helped in years past, the only way we knew what kind of carcass that bull would produce was to breed him with some cows and feed the calves out and then slaughter them. And the bull was 4 years old before we knew. Nowadays, with ultrasound and with genetic markers, we can tell on young bulls whether they should be producing higher quality carcasses or not. And so by looking at that information at a bull sale, you can get an idea.
And when you go to a bull sale and you look at the catalog, and a lot of people are in the area, so they know what they're looking. But a lot of people see that with a lot of numbers and they get confused, right? So if you were targeting better carcass, what do you think were the numbers that people really need to focus on?
Well, I think the marbling EPDs, and I don't think you need to worry so much about having real high numbers. But at least don't buy bulls that have negative numbers, because then you're going to take away from market. the same with ribeye area. In a lot of these youth shows, I see a lot of these steers that have ribeyes that are too large. I think anything over about 15 square inches is too large. You know, most of us can't eat a steak that big if you cut it an inch thick. And what happens when you start cutting it thinner than that is that people overcook them. So the tenderness and juiciness is not as good. So we have a choice. We can try to cut back on the size of those ribeyes. Now, part of it is related to carcass size, because the bigger the carcass, the bigger the ribeye. And through the years, weight has been a real determinant of value. And so we've gotten them so big that we need to start considering how are we going to reduce the size of the ribeye. So I tell people any bull that's got over about 10 square inches is plenty. If it's over 15, I think it's a little too big.
And when we present the ribeye data in proportion of the size of the animal, right? They have a ratio, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that is give you a better understanding of the size, or it's?
Well, in some ways, but what happens is the smaller animal tends to have a higher ratio. So you have to be careful of what you're looking at. I say just look at the absolute values on ribeyes.
Okay. And would you have a different criteria if you're gonna retain your calves or if you're gonna sell your calves on how you look at their catalog?
Well, when you're going to sell them, then you want weights, bigger weights. Realizing that the bigger the weight, the lower the price is going to be. But I personally don't think you should differentiate that, because our industry has succeeded by producing high quality beef. I can remember in the 70s, about every breed association came out with a lean product. That's what they were promoting. Except for the Angus people, and they came out with a fat product. Which one's still there? It's the one that's got the fat in it. All the others have pretty much gone by the wayside. Because the consumer wants something that's consistently good, particularly at the prices they're having to pay for it nowadays. So I think we as cattle producers need to concentrate on, are we producing a good, high quality product?
And when you see on those balance between size and quality, right? You need to make decisions there. Do you think that those criteria are also really different between breeds?
Well, yeah, they are. There's good ones in all breeds. You just have to find them. And there's bad ones in all breeds. So, what's happened in our industry is most people have gone to Angus because of the certified Angus beef program. If you drive down the road, you see an awful lot of black cattle. And part of that is related to the quality associated with that breed. Now, some of the other breeds have as good a quality as the black ones, but they haven't advertised quite as much. So.
Yeah, that would be my next point. So we do have a lot of producers that keep their base cow herd like Brangus here with some indicos in it, and then they go with a continental breed to try to increase the size.
Right.
But I think you touch on that point that sometimes you can go on a continental breed that will have a bigger size, but you can use those bulls that will have a better.
Well, with some of those continental breeds, you can select bulls that have positive for marbling and use those. In fact, I find the little smutty calves bring as much money as the black ones. Just depends on what you're trying to do.
And now translated to your own cattle. right? That's what you have worked in the last 30 years and try to promote and help the cattlemen. So now translate to your own cattle herd. What is your criteria?
Well, I decided a long time ago to have a terminal cross approach because I'm not don't have enough cattle to produce a lot of heifers and those kinds of things. So I sell all of my offspring, heifers and steers, and most of my and I buy bred heifers from some Florida producers, which, as you would expect, are Brangus type heifers, and then I breed them to Charolais bulls and Charolais cross bulls. This just here recently, I bought some of the baseliner bulls from Chris Hardy, and I'm excited to breed them and see how they do. I've bred crossbred bulls, Charolais Angus crosses, and they work well for me.
And you think that the basic cow herd with English and Indicos and then a terminal sire continental, you think you're going to have that balance between size and still have a quality?
Well, the ones I've fed have worked out very well.
Okay.
So from the standpoint of the carcass, so I'm happy with it. I'm excited to see how these baseliner bulls do.
And now with the return of few feedlots in Florida, do you think that having those feedlots and people finishing cattle in Florida, they'll probably bring us more information to make those decisions?
Oh yeah, it makes it a lot easier to get that information. And the feedlot here has been very willing to give you that information, rather than having to ship them out to Texas or Kansas or Oklahoma. That makes it a lot more convenient for a cow-calf producer to get the information, rather than just shipping them off.
Right. And sell, many times when you sell, you don't have any feedback, right? Probably the buyer is happy, but you never heard about those.
Well, you only hear if he's not happy.
Exactly.
Because he doesn't come back again. So, but I think in Florida, our producers have been very progressive in getting out there and trying to get information on the carcasses of the animals they're producing.
And Dr. West, we are going here to the end of our interview, so I would like to ask you 3 quick questions. The first one is, you have been in Florida, is from Polk County for a long time. If you have to select 2 forage species that you like, which one will be?
Well, I think that's in our area here. You got to have Bahia grass. I like Pensacola. You mistreat it and it still comes back. And then on top of that would be coastal. I wish we could grow some of the things you guys have developed down in Alma, but it's too cold up here. It gets cold weather takes care of it. I see some of the research that they're trying some up in Mariana. It would be nice to have some of those grasses up here, the digit grasses, I guess.
Yeah. And on another question, we talk a little bit and explore those, but if you have to select 2 breeds that you would prefer, which breeds would you?
Well, I don't know if it means anything, Joe, but probably Brangus and Charolais.
Okay. That is pretty much reflect your what you are doing right now. Yeah, and
if I didn't like those 2, I'd probably be doing something different.
Exactly. But I have seen that evolves over time, right? Like everything else. So people keep trying new things and find good.
I've tried a lot.
Yeah. So and Dr. West, when you are not working, and do you have any hobby or other things that you like to do in your spare time?
Well, I used to do a lot of quail hunting until the quail disappeared in Florida. And, over the last few years, some of the cattlemen in Florida and I have gone out to the west and went pheasant hunting, and I enjoy doing that. But primarily, I work. If you talk to my wife, that's what she'll tell you. Even though I'm retired, I'm on the road, doing something, particularly since my cattle are scattered around in the counties.
Okay.
And I enjoy doing that. So,
Dr. West, I would like to thank you again for participating in the podcast. And I am Joe Vendramini.
Joe, what?